Okay, here we are. This is my favorite strip. This is my favorite strip of this little walk here that we have. Through this little walk right here, see? I like this. You like this street? Hey Groot, I am Groot. I am Groot. Now you're quiet now, suddenly? Nothing to say? What are you thinking about? It's a nice street, right? Konnichiwa. Can you walk the rest? You want to walk? Walk, okay. Hold on. Let me open this up and put this down. Okay, let's walk. Okay, walk. Go. Hey, wait for me. Wait for me. Stop, 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 stop. Make sure no cars are coming. Okay. Let's go. Hello there, morons. It's Victor. Give me a break, man. Give me a flick, man. Using my new flat lens. It's a fisheye lens. Nearby my house. There's so much. It's a nice little neighborhood. So much to see. I don't know what to show you. Today, as you can see by the headline of this video. By the way, someone emailed me and said, "Victor, don't show us your face so much. Show us what you're looking at." That's what he's like. I love your videos, but I'm tired of looking at your face. I thought that was amusing, but you know, I guess it's honest. So, as you can see by the title, today's topic, today's laundry video is, who are you? You know, how do you define yourself? And it's a bit of a drama, to be honest, which is why there's also drama in the title. And I'm going to also warn you that if you clicked on this and you give me shit about it being drama, maybe I'll erase the comment. I don't know. It's like you're an idiot, okay? Let me just preface this video with that. You're an idiot if you clicked on this and you complain that it's drama. It is a bit of drama, but drama, as I've said many times in the past, is a way that we can learn how to deal with each other. Because life is drama. I mean, human beings are what we are, and this is the same thing that's happening on the internet. We're just human beings talking and interacting with each other, and we're just learning on how to deal with each other. Friction. Human beings are by nature. What's the word? Frictionless. We're gonna, you know, interaction just leads to friction, and that leads to orgasm, and sometimes just fights and stuff. But anyway, I've never been. This is kind of near my house, but I've never been on this particular block. It is kind of interesting. Look at that. Oh wow. Oh wow. Look at pillows. Interesting. They're making pillows in there. Okay. So this is. I got a little backstory for this drama. Okay. So about a week ago or so, I posted on Facebook about the I don't know if you're following this. It's not a big story, but there's statues in the south of the United States of America of Confederate soldiers, and most people, I guess, would like them removed because they feel like they shouldn't be honoring those people, the soldiers who, for many people, represent oppression and racism and a bygone age that we as Americans should be ashamed of. Other people, of course, argue that no, that we should keep them because that's part of history and you can't erase history. And other people feel insulted that they're being erased because they feel like their forefathers fought and died for nothing if you erase those statues. Because, you know, some of those people are descendants of those soldiers. And I don't really care too much about, I guess, the politics of that, but my argument on Facebook was simply you have to weigh the respect you have for your ancestors, if you consider them your ancestors, with the respect you have for the people living in your present day society, the people that make up the fabric of your society right now. Look at this beautiful, beautiful house. You know, I mean, what's more important to you? That's all I said. You know, I didn't say either. I didn't actually say one is more important than the other. I just said which one. I'm asking. Of course, you know, I believe that the statues don't really have a place in our society anymore. And Mully Warmothstrat put up linked a very interesting page or a video about the only slave museum in America. And if you want, I'll try to remember to link it in this. If I forget, please remind me. I'll link it later. But if you think about, if you watch that video and if you had other thoughts, you may be convinced that's the way to go, right? Okay, and now I will break the law and jaywalk and walk across this very busy street with nobody on it. How about on this side? Anybody on this side? Nobody on the side either, see? There you go. Breaking the law. Send this to the police, please, right away. Look at those haters. Anyway, then when I linked the article happened to be of, it was talking about this mob of people who are against the removal of the statues, and they're showing up at night with torches. And someone wrote in the comments, well, that's intimidation, that shouldn't be allowed, that's intimidating. And someone else wrote, well, it wouldn't be intimidating if it were chem lights, you know, those things that you use at Halloween for fun. Kids walk around at night, you know, and I guess they use them at raves and stuff, concerts like that. But anyway, they're completely harmless. And a certain individual wrote that no, I would be intimidated, ergo they are intimidating, which I just thought was ridiculous. And he immediately brought up his disability and said, no, you don't understand because I'm disabled and blah blah blah. And I said, dude, quit being such a pussy, because this isn't the first time he's brought up his disability on a completely unrelated topic. He has this tendency, which way should I go? Maybe that way. He has this tendency to bring up his disability and for some reason make it support whatever argument he's trying to make, even though it has nothing to do with anything, right? And I said he's a pussy for defining himself that way. Basically, I said to him, I think you're bringing up too much. I think you define yourself that way, and it's boring as hell. He PM'd me, so we continue that conversation a little bit that way. But as much as I tried to make him understand that I wasn't talking about his disability, I wasn't annoyed by his disability, and I don't hold it against him. Of course, you can't hold that against anyone. But I was annoyed that he was using that as an attempt to be logical. Like, that made logic to him, and he couldn't hear anything I said. He then claimed that I believe all people with disabilities are pussies, which is not the case at all. I just think he's a pussy because I think he sees himself as a loser. Now, for those of you who know who he is, I suppose it's pretty easy to figure out who this is. But here's the thing: if you're disabled, I think the biggest compliment you can pay anyone is to treat them like you would treat anyone else. Wow, this mom's got 3 kids. That's tough. Taihen desu ne, 3人. Gambatte. I got 2 and I'm complaining. She got 3. She's wasting money on the Ampan diapers. The Ampan diapers are the most expensive ones. But poor mom, look at that. More pity for her than a disabled person who bitches about being disabled. So I had this run in, and this is a laundry video, so those of you who have gotten this far and going, what the hell's the point? Well, it's a train of thought. The laundry video is a video that takes a long time for me to get to the point. So if it's gonna take a long time. So buckle in, right? And don't give me shit about it, because that's what laundry video means. So if you clicked on laundry video not knowing what it meant, well, now you know. 100 yen's pretty cheap. Okay, so about 8 years ago on YouTube, I had this little drama back and forth with some guy. I forgot, I think his name was Tom, and he's in a wheelchair. I think he's might have been paraplegic, I don't remember the details. But we had a little back and forth, and the same issue arose, and he was actually, if I remember correctly, he was actually glad that I didn't hold back with my opinion because of his disability. And some people, of course, some people said, oh, you shouldn't, you're being, they just thought I should be nicer because the guys are disabled. But this is the internet. Our physical abilities are not the question here, right? It doesn't matter how physically fit you are or aren't. The only muscle that matters, and I've said this before, is the muscle between your ears, or lack thereof. So, where are we? Okay, so anyway. So let's get back to this guy, okay? So this guy is on the internet. I've known him for a few years. I've met him in person a couple times, but none of that is relevant. I'm not really talking about him, okay? He is not the issue. His argument is the issue. The fact that he thinks that because he's disabled, he can define chem sticks as a threatening, you know. You just can't say chem sticks are threatening because you're scared of them. That's a phobia, okay? That's unreasonable. But it's fine to have a phobia. I mean, everyone's got phobias, I guess. I don't know. But you can't just say chem sticks are threatening. Now, a mob of people is threatening. If he had argued mobs of people are threatening, I would say, yeah, okay, cool. If he had argued mobs with torches are threatening, or even one guy with a torch is threatening, I would have said, yes, you're right. Oh, look at that. Little bonsai plants. Cute. I would have said, yeah, that's true. But I would never have argued that because I'm disabled, chem sticks must now by definition be threatening. Because that's basically what his argument was. And like I told you before, I'm sorry to repeat myself, anyone who knows this guy knows that you can't get into a conversation that's more than 5 minutes longer before he starts arguing or bringing up his disability and how, I don't know, whatever. So, and I'll give you another example of that, which annoyed the hell out of me. Well, let's back up a little bit. So then, next step in this little drama is that I said I tried explaining to this in a private Facebook conversation, and he couldn't get it. He couldn't understand. So I said he claimed that I thought all disabled people were pussies, and I said, no, you stupid motherfucker. Or dumb motherfucker. That's it. Not that makes it any better. I said, I don't give a shit about your disability. I'm only arguing your illogic. So his illogic train of thought is the only thing I was talking about. I wasn't talking about his disability at all. Okay, another example of this. So I'm sorry. So then he screen captures that and puts it on Twitter. Okay? This is new. He screen captures that and puts it on Twitter. And he doesn't, and he names me, right? And then he claims on Twitter that Victor thinks all disabled people are pussies, which is completely inaccurate. But you know what? I didn't care. I just thought it was kind of a telling thing to do. If you do that, I mean, I didn't care. I'm not bitching about it. But if you do that, it tells me a lot about you. You're the kind of person who would screen capture private conversations and put them out on Twitter. So whatever, fine. So I said, okay. I said, that's telling that you did that. And I could tell I wasn't getting through to him. So I said, that's enough, dude. I tried really hard to make him understand that it had nothing to do with his disability, and I was only annoyed by his illogic. And ended up blocking him on Facebook and Twitter. Because I don't care. I love flowers. Anyway, so that's the next step. Then he starts, he makes a video, okay? Which nobody sees. And I was not going to see, but I'll admit I ended up watching it. And again, it was completely illogical. And you can just see by the way he sees himself is completely illogical. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I got to back up. This is important. This is the reason that it's okay for me to talk about this. I called him out on that shit. He said, well, I'm brave enough to call you out by name. I was being polite. Oh, yeah, because on my Facebook, I wrote couple Facebook posts about this issue, but never named him. And yeah, if you knew who he was, you probably know. But a couple people who knew him, like Higo Simon, couldn't figure out who I was talking about, actually. Anyway, so here's the point. He claims that he was being brave by calling me out by name. So if that's what he considers brave, then I think it's okay for me to make this video. And again, I'm not really talking about the topic of this video is how do you define yourself, and I'm just bringing him up as a good example of what I think is not a good way to define yourself. So that's the basis of this. Okay, I guess that's the stimulus or the spark to this video. This is where this idea came from, because this happens with a lot of people. I think a lot of people define themselves by certain things that are not really. Oh yeah, oh my God, this just goes on and on. They define themselves by things that I do not think are actually defining, but they choose to use these things to define themselves. And I'll back up a little bit. So I tried to get him to see this. I said, how do you define yourself? And he refused to even accept that as a real question. Like, it didn't make any sense to him. He claims, like, I don't understand what that could even mean. I'm a human being. I cannot be defined. Well, of course, I mean, but people understand what that means. If you can look it up on Google, people understand that question. How do you define yourself? And I started thinking about my own life and how I have defined myself in the past. And it's interesting because I also have fallen into that. I've made the mistake of defining myself as a loser or as a victim. I shouldn't say loser. I say victim of my consequences. In the past, it's been for things such as a woman who dumped me. I had this woman. I was very much in love with a woman for many years, and I thought I would marry her. And she was not my wife, my current wife. My current wife. She's not Yoko. Okay, it wasn't Yoko. It was someone many years before Yoko. Okay, and after we broke up, I was pretty devastated for a long time, and I saw myself as you know, the rejected guy. The guy. My existence was just post her. I was pretty upset about it, and that's how I saw myself, right? And I got my life, you know, little by little, I let go of it. I started, finally, after many things and many different failed relationships. It's better than saying women. Failed relationships. I got into a situation where I was the owner of 2 bars and the manager of a very popular rock and roll band here in Nagoya and the owner of an English school. I was the man around town in Nagoya. And long story short, and it is a really long story, and there's actually a video on it called Truth that I'll try to remember to link, that tells you how my life got all really screwed up in a very short period of time. But within a period of about 2 months, I lost the bars and the rock and roll band contract. I was no longer a manager there. Well, this is a really narrow road. Can I go through there? Look at this. Anyway, I think I should whisper there. Look at that. I hope I'm not walking in anyone's yard. I think this is a road. Let's go. No. It's a dead end. Okay. So that was a mistake. Anyway, long story short, I was suddenly no longer the man in town, right? And this used to be a candy store, and it still is. And I felt very sorry for myself, and I was pretty shocked. And again, for a long time, I saw myself as this victim. You know, what is that? We should ask him. I just saw my... すいません。あれ何の機械ですか？見たことないです。何を測ってるんですか？土の硬さ。ああ、地震がありそうだかなとかそういうこと？はい。穴が入ってる？はい。そうか、ジオカーって。すいませんでした。お邪魔して。Alright, so that's measuring the stability of the ground. It's going to build something there. You can see it's an empty lot, right? And it said Geo on the machine. That's so cute. Anyway, I saw myself as a victim for a long time, and I just saw a clip about Trump on the John Oliver show, and they were talking about, and actually you've probably seen this on many clips on many different news shows, but the fact that Trump recently gave some speech at some naval academy or something, and he said, "No president in history has ever been treated as badly as I have. I've been treated so badly," and he just goes on and on how bad people are treating him. Oh. That was Hiko Simon, speak of the devil. Get you later, buddy. And the other thing that was interesting was that he seemed, apparently, yeah, there were stories about him who, when he was on SNL, he would carry around a card of the ratings of The Apprentice to show how great his ratings were, which seems like a really weird thing to do, right? So, and I was thinking about that too, and in a way, that's similar. Bye-bye. So I thought, wow, that's interesting. That's almost as bad as defining yourself by being a victim. This Trump sees himself as either a victim, you know, the worst treated president ever, or so he sees himself as a victim, or by the ratings, by his successes, right? You know the expression "sitting on your laurels." I guess a lot of people define themselves by their victories as well, which in a way is as inaccurate. I'm starting to think. I'm you know, right now, maybe it's just as inaccurate as defining yourself as a victim. I mean, I suppose it's better to define yourself by your victories than your failures. But I mean, think about this: if you're going back to when I was, you know, Mr. Bar owner, rock and roll band manager, school owner, in a way, yeah, that's how I define myself. And when I lost all those things, I felt lost. And previous to that, looking back at my high school relationship, another relationship where I was very much in love with a girl, well, not high school, but post-high school. That's really cute. You know, I lost that relationship. When that relationship failed, I again felt lost. I defined myself as that woman's man and boyfriend. And I was the guy who, look at that. I was the guy who was dating her. I was in that relationship. That's how I defined myself, through that relationship. Oh, cool. So then, after that, when I defined myself by my victories, the material things that surrounded me, like being the school owner and being the bar owner and being the band manager, but those were actually inaccurate because those were not me. Those were part of my life, but they were not me. And the same thing with my failures. Those are not me as either. Those things that happened to me, but those are not me. Anyway, then after another important part of that is that after I lost the bars and the band manager stuff, I became a YouTuber. And they may sound ridiculous, and that might even sound like a label, but it's not. I started YouTubing, I should say. I started YouTubing. And even saying I'm a YouTuber is just something I say, but I don't know if that's really accurate as well either. But I started YouTubing, and by YouTubing I started just talking to people and sounding out ideas and feeling out ideas and just communicating with people. And I realized this is really vague to say, but that's who I was. The person on the videos that you see, basically that's who I am. That thinking human being. Now that might sound like I can't define myself anymore, but doesn't necessarily mean I can't. Hachi? Hachi desu ka? Sumimasen, konnichiwa. They're looking at bees. This park will be full of cicadas. And so, yeah, I started sounding out my ideas and discovering who I was, and I realized that I am not simply, you know, like the old Fight Club expressions go, you know, I'm not my pair of khakis, I'm not my job, I'm not my money in the bank, you know, I'm much more than that. And I think that's what I was trying to get at. You should not define yourself by your failures, and don't be a victim. Don't see yourself that way. That's all I'm trying to say. I know it took a long time for me to get there, but anyway, I'm on my way to the nursery school to pick up my son, so I'm gonna go now. But it's still quite a ways out. I purposely took a long route. So. Anyway, what do you guys think? And again, I got a little bit of criticism, as in, don't you have pity or don't you have sympathy? I have sympathy for what do I have sympathy? How do I say it? Well, you know, it just sounds like yeah, I was accused of being a bigot for having that opinion, but I'm not a bigot, and I will stand up for weaker people or people who are being bullied. Okay. That is something you can never. I've done that. I've marched I've jumped into fights where people are getting their asses kicked. Okay, by myself, I've jumped into fights quite many times, and yeah, you've even seen videos of me jumping in and stopping people from being hurt. So I'm not a hero by any chance, by any stretch of the imagination, but flowers, beautiful flowers. But I'm not a bigot, and I don't think disabled people are any less, and I think they should be treated with respect, of course. So that's silly, and I guess, and you know, I'm just saying that to counter any. You should be more sympathetic. You know, well, you know the expression, "It's cruel to be kind." I believe that. I think it would be just cruel to be kind. The thing is, I just, if someone's illogic, it's basically ridiculous for you to expect them to ever see the logical opinion that I've just laid out here. The only, again, going back to the original instigator of this vlog, the only reason I said you were a pussy is because you bring it up to try to defend positions that have nothing to do with disabilities at all. Yeah. I hope I explained that correctly. I don't know. I hope you guys got that. Anyway, don't define yourself. Or how do you define yourself? Isn't that a good question? And have you made the mistake of defining yourselves by your victories? And what happens if those get taken away from you? Do you define yourselves by your job? Because what happens when you lose that? Because you're going to lose that someday. In fact, it's one thing that happens a lot in Japan. You see salarymen who worked their whole lives and then become strong members of the company men, and then they lose it. Then they retire and they've got nothing, and that's why we have some rates of suicide too go up there. And there's horrible stories about people who send out like 400 or 500 New Year's cards. I just threw up. That's weird. New Year's cards, and then the next year they retire and they send out they send out a bunch, but they get like 5 back because nobody cares anymore because they're you know. No, they're not anybody anymore in other people's minds, and when they think that too, when they've lost their identity, it can be a pretty traumatizing thing. Okay, well, that's all I got for you for now. Thanks for watching my longest video. Let me know what you think. All right, talk to you guys soon. Let's go. Whoa. Hey, don't squirm around so much. That way? Okay. Kochi. This way? This way? I am Groot. Now we are Groot. We are Groot. We are Groot. We are Groot.
Bye bye. Yeah, bye.